The story starts when the main protagonist Lee Hyun comes home in ecstasy and tells her mom she's back. She tells her mom proudly that she has got the scholarship this time and has brought some tasty fruits from the money she received from the company. Her mother coldly tells her that it isn't something she should be proud of. Looking at her phone and not paying heed or showing any emotion about her success, the mother says that the girl next door has already achieved a performance bonus from her company. Lee Hyun's mother's reaction deeply saddens her, and to make it further worse, the mother taunts her that she didn't even buy the fruits from the 20 department stores her brothers don't eat them unless they purchase from there. Her young brothers arrive, and the mother greets them with complete joy and asks them for a ride. Lee Hyun asks where they are going, to which the mother tells her that they're going to Grandma's this time. Lee Hyun also passed the prestigious university on which they gave her mother something, which the mother says she doesn't need to know about. The mother tells her to leave if she has nothing to say and takes the fruits. Lee Hyun knows that it has been that way since childhood and that she isn't behaved well with and loving. She takes a hot bath in the bathtub knowing she is an uninvited guest. She has recently become independent. She lays down on the bed in mere helplessness. Lee Hyun is a 23 years old college student and hasn't been loved since childhood. As she lies on the bed, her phone beeps, and she finds out that the new episode of her favorite novel. She feels that reading a book whose chapter is updated every night is the only good thing in her life. Today's story is the same as the other days, and it appears that the man dressed as a king loves his daughter and tells her that she's the most precious girl in the world. Lee Hyun thinks that everyone loves the girl in the novel, her friends, her father and everyone else, and thinks that it must be a healing parenting novel that must be commonplace for someone. But she feels that reading her favorite novel on a miserable day like today is a precious writing ray of consolation and blithesome to her. She holds her phone and hardly feels terrible that no one loves and cares about her, and she thinks it would be nice to have a world where everybody loves her. She feels sleepy, and at this moment, her phone falls off her hand and the world's gears turn as the phone falls. It keeps falling into the bottomless abyss, and Lee Hyun wishes that she also wants to be loved. And as her eyes open, she knows she's been reincarnated in another girl's body. As a one-year romance fantasy reader, Lee Hyun, who wakes up as a girl, suddenly feels that she's in the isekai of her favorite novel she used to fantasize. She sees that dragon head and the portraits of dragons hung on the walls. Right now, she is sure that she's in the Edom family. The Edom family was also called the Dragon family as they had deep ties with the dragons. The Edom family's predecessor, Baited Edom, had made a contract with the Black Dragon, and he drank the blood of the Black Dragon for that contract, for which he got dream powers that descended to his successors until now. But all this power has a side effect. Whenever the mana runs out of control, it incites the urge to kill. It is being said that there's a chronic disease coming named as brightening. But there's someone who can stop all this wreckage from happening, someone capable of quelling this berserk contract of the Black Dragon's agreement. And that's her, the novel's main character. Although the novel's main character has a personality like the resurrecting sunshine, she also has a good disposition that she doesn't tolerate any injustice. This nature of the main character will bring salvation to the Edom family soon, and she genuinely seems worthy of the main character. She assumes that she's here because of reading the novel 1,000 times. She must have possessed the story's main character. She thinks she will now enjoy her life in pink, just like her pink hair, watching herself in the mirror. She is left in shock to see her hair pink instead of black as she remembers that the novel's main character has black hair. She suddenly remembers that her name is Iron Edom. Iron was the illegitimate daughter and was disowned by her family due to her reckless behavior, and is lucky, too, that her descendants allowed her to live in their house, and also remembers the year when Iron turned 5 due to an accident. In the New Year's party her lineage was questioned and was kicked out. She couldn't believe that she got possessed by an extra side character in the novel I Need to Be Adopted, and she thinks that it's nothing but just an additional misfortune. As Iron gulps the bowl of hot chocolate all at once, her maid rushes towards her and asks if she's okay, as the hot chocolate might still be hot. The maid's name is Mela. She praises Mela for the tasty hot chocolate and how she made it. Mela gets bubbles on her face and flatters a little. Mela tells the little girl Iron that it's called black chocolate, and she's giving that to Iron because there are not enough workers. Mela tells Iron that she has made it with great care and love. Iron remembers that Mela is her exclusive maid, but she was caring and loving even before Iron got possessed. Mela has told her everything about this world and is like a sister to Iron, and Iron believes her the most out of her whole family. She asks Mela if there's an event tomorrow, to which Mela tells her there's a New Year party tomorrow. She frowns a little and suddenly remembers that tomorrow is the day when she'll be kicked out of the family. She immediately puts the bowl aside and tells Mela that she'll be back soon and that she will deliver the rest of the black chocolate to her room. She runs down the main hall to the library and uses her knowledge to pick the best one of our nursery schools in case she's kicked out. Iron gets tired as she's 5-year-old and about to open the door. She tries her best to remember about the old orphanage run by an ancient hero, but she's stunned that she doesn't even remember that. As she is in this dilemma, she doesn't realize another man is standing before her. As Iron notices there's a man in front of her, she's surprised to see a very handsome man with gorgeous hair like they contained all the darkness of the world, and his glistened eyes like honey shine bright, and it seemed to her that God must have created it with sincerity. The Adam's final successor candidate, Erno Adam, stood and read a book from the shelf. She is amazed that it reminded her of the original story and is surprised at why Erno Adam is in the library, as she hasn't seen him for 1 year. As Erno Adam asks Iron about the Book of Divine Magic, she keeps looking at her and doesn't reply as she's captivated by his beauty, so Erno Adam draws his attention back and starts rereading the book. Iron then replies in a short tongue sound, as she's just 5 years old, that it's on the second column of the bookshelf. As Erno Adam doesn't respond as Iron expected, she assumes that maybe Erno doesn't like short tongue sounds and pretends she doesn't know him. Iron finds the book she's looking for, starts reading it, and finds the nursing school, which a great war hero took care of. Erno Adam is also reading it with the girl, but she doesn't realize it. As soon as Erno Adam thanks her for finding the book, Iron becomes nervous, but Erno thanks her and appreciates her knowledge about the readers of this vast library. As Erno Adam asks her about the book she's reading, she thinks she will be kicked out tomorrow and wants to avoid being caught here, so she tells Erno that the book is about practicing leading and writing. Erno knows nothing about what the girl tells her but says it's okay and seems fun and then walks away. Suddenly, Iron feels something strange, and her heartbeat is faster than usual, and in a moment, she becomes a cute little pink dragon and realizes why her lineage is questioned and why she's not an Adam. As she comes out of her clothes being a dragon, she knows she's right because she's a dragon. Iron knows that she couldn't control his transformation at the New Year party and turned into a dragon, but she's worried for now as she doesn't know how to return to her original form. She doesn't want to be caught, so she takes her clothes with her and hides herself behind the shelf. She's so emotional that she can't return to human form forever. She suddenly looks at a ring which is very shiny and looks expensive. She wonders who dropped it. As Iron remembers the call, she gets a flashback about when she saw that ring on Erno Adam's hand and is sure now that it's Adam's and takes a deep sigh. Meanwhile, Erno is returning to the library to get his ring back, which is in the hands of the girl who's a dragon now. As Erno Adam realizes he has forgotten his ring, he returns to the library. When Erno enters through the library's main door, he notices something queer as the little girl Iron is lying on the floor. But it's the fact that she has turned into a dragon, so she's hiding. Erno keeps looking at her and wonders what she's doing down there. At last, Erno goes near the girl and lifts her dress a little. He sees Iron lying underneath and asks her about the game she's playing. Iron blushes and tells Erno quickly that she is picking up the ring. Before Erno arrives, the little girl hides under her clothes and turns back into a human just in time when Erno enters the library. Now, Iron wants to pass a natural vibe and tells Erno that it's his ring when asked about it, and also tells Erno that she picked it up from under the shelf and cleaned it well. When Iron gives her a ring, it shines a lot, making Erno admire her. Erno tells her that the ring is so important to him, so he comes back in a hurry, thanks her for finding her ring upside down with great enthusiasm, and pats her hair gently, which makes the little girl blush and laugh. While giving the ring to Erno, she knows that Erno hates being touched, so she throws the call from a bit of height. Erno stares at the ring and still can't believe the way it's shining. The little girl Iron then sees Erno, tells her she's going now, and runs past Erno. Erno turns back and sees her going back, thinking in his mind that it was fun. New Year's Day arrives, and there's a party being arranged in the Honorable Adam Mansion Grand Banquet Hall. When Iron enters the hall, she's amazed that everybody's there, and they all look shiny. She ponders that it must have been difficult for Iron, who turned into a dragon today, but now it's her story. There's nothing to worry about. Iron learned the orphanage location last night and collected some emergency funds by roaming around the mansion all night. So if she becomes a dragon, she can count on those valuable pennies. Suddenly, the soldiers start to introduce the arrival of the defender of the empire, and the 12th dragon, Duke Myrle Edam, entering the hall. Duke Myrle Edam is the 12th head of the Edam family, and his 2 sons are also with him. The Duke's first son is Erno Edam, whom she met in the library, and the second son is Celian Edam, who doesn't seem to enjoy the party. The Duke orders to get the party going. Iron remembers that these are the people among the numerous Edams who strongly inherited the blood of the dragon the thickest. The way and the style of the Edams while entering were enough to create an intimidating environment at the party. Iron is shocked to see and can't understand at first, but then realizes that Erno is waving at her in front of the whole party, and she becomes so nervous seeing that Erno waved at him. She also hears some people whispering into each other's ears about the surprising fact that Erno waved at Iron, and she quickly understands that the people are talking about her. Iron, to not draw further attention, waves back at Erno, which Erno feels a little weird as it was a little delayed response. A man stands up and asks the Duke for permission to call the First Order, which the Duke allows. So the man announces the First Order and orders Wilm to come forward kindly. Wilm comes forward and clears his throat before greeting the Duke. Iron quickly remembers this custom of the New Year of the Duke that he calls everyone and orders them to announce their annual plan. Wilm tells the Duke that he's lying about the new study this year as recently. A plant discovered in the eastern continent calms down a man's mind and body and gives a peculiar scent. After hearing this all, the Duke orders Wilm to stop. The Duke asks Wilm about his knowledge of the previous research, to which Wilm gives an affirmative response nervously. The Duke then fumingly yells at Wilm that he's studying a plant discovered a long time ago, and if there's any new flower blooming in Wilm's head. The Duke also tells him that he knows that Wilm has spent all the research money on the bar and harassed a woman too in the store, and that Wilm is also in debt with his family name as collateral. Wilm tries to negate, but the king furiously orders Wilm to tell them what is valid if it's not the truth, that Wilm has tarnished the Duke's name, and that there's no reason to keep him alive. Wilm is terrified by what he's just listened to and murmurs something, but he immediately gets down on his knees before the Duke and asks his forgiveness. The Edam family's New Year gathering is just a dark place where the Duke exposes the dark history of last year. Iron anxiously thinks that there are only so many things to be scolded for and feels that the Duke cares about his family when a garbage man comes and speaks trash. The Duke keeps calling everybody, but when Iron realizes that she may well have to go, she starts sweating in terror but calms herself by saying that there are a lot of family members, so she might not have to go soon. It happens, and the Duke asks seeing the little that what is this little fluff, on which Erno Edam advises his father to call her by her name. The Duke ridiculously calls her Fluff, then calls her name Iron and asks about her plans. She ponders in her mind that going to an orphanage is good and feels naughty that she might want to turn into a dragon now. The Duke asks Iron again about her New Year plans, to which she murmurs some words and then tells the Duke confidently that she wants to get out of the house without being interrupted. The Duke is surprised to see such a strange plan, and his children and the people are stunned by such a weird confession. The Duke again confirms that if she wants to leave, then why is that? In utter chaos, Iron shouts she knows the secret of her birth, then immediately realizes that she's messed up and shouldn't have said that nonsense. The Duke asks about the mystery and wants to hear more about it. Iron is now under immense pressure and knows she's doomed. She remembers that the announcements have been an utter mess for her since the old days in her previous life. When she's about to open her mouth in front of the Duke, a soldier of the Duke interrupts the proceedings and describes the seriousness of the matter. The Duke asks the soldier why he interrupted the party and orders him to tell what's happening. The soldier explains that the floating stone mine has just collapsed and trapped several workers and a manager. The Duke inquires about the casualties, but thankfully there's no death, as they know, but several workers appear to be injured. The king is tense about providing all his workers safety. The Duke is stressed and gathers all his thoughts and orders the New Year's gathering to be held again in a few days and to keep everyone in the family. The Duke points at several people with his finger and orders them to remain silent, wipe their hair, and follow him quietly. The people the Duke calls cry as they feel it's their last breaths while she sees them thinking something. The Duke also points at Iron, who becomes emotional and eventually can't control her tears and starts crying, asking for a handkerchief. Everybody's watching Iron cry and feels sorry for her, but she feels that everyone is angry. Then, she asks the soldier for the handkerchief, which he pulls out of his dress, and as the soldier is about to hand it to her, the Duke swipes the cloth of the soldier's hand. Duke tells the little girl that he didn't order her to wipe her tears and that the next gathering will start again with the girl first and advises her to think smartly. Iron asks if she's not going with the other people, and the Duke ridicules that fluff like her can't even be used as cow food. She feels embarrassed and imagines herself being compared to a cow. Iron then asks the Duke where these people are going and accidentally calls her grandpa. The Duke doesn't realize and starts explaining that she doesn't need to know, but when he does, he asks her about what she said earlier. She then changes the course and removes Grandpa from his question, But the Duke is keen to know still what she said before that too. Iron knows she's doomed again and realizes she called the Duke grandpa without recognizing that she will be in trouble. She knows she got nervous, but there's no need to panic. She must smile and face all this. Iron gathers her confidence and calls the Duke grandpa again with bright eyes. Everybody's watching, and the Duke is stunned. Iron says yes, the Duke is his grandpa, and wonders if that's right. As the Duke was about to give a reaction, the soldier called the Duke again to come with them, on which the Duke threw the handkerchief back at the girl and told her she was going to be investigated thoroughly, so she should be prepared. The Duke tells her to meet him the next time, on which she's a bit nervous that there's still a next time and wonders if the Duke will kill her. And just like that, the Duke goes with his men, and the gathering ends in a chaotic atmosphere. The next day, there's bright sunlight, and Iron sits on the bench in the open air, worried that she's looked at all the orphanages but hasn't found the safer one and keeps thinking about the previous day. Suddenly, Iron jerks a little as a paper ball comes and hits her out of nowhere. She wonders how this paper ball came and hit her by itself. Then, she sees a ball approaching her with pace, but she shows excellent reflexes and shouts, which is doing that. The naughty bullies are doing this all and call her a crybaby. One of the boys taunts her, saying that she is sitting alone and has no home or friends, which surprises her as it is unexpected. The boys further ridicule her, telling her to throw back the ball and making her feel illiterate, explaining that the thing he threw at her is the ball. Iron tends to keep patient. They make fun of her, saying she hasn't received any home education because she doesn't even have second parents. Iron has had enough. The boy keeps saying that her mom told him not to play with kids without his parents so that he won't play with her. They further ridicule her by saying what she has if she doesn't have any friends, family, or home, and mock her by saying that she has the birth secret at least, and burst out laughing. After laughing, one of the boys tells the one who is making fun of Iron to look behind her, which he shudders, and when he nervously turns around, he asks what's behind him as there's a big shadow on his back. Iron was fuming with all the fun they made of her, carrying a massive rock in his hands and about to throw it at the boy, making fun of her. As the boy turns around, he sees Iron holding a big rock in his hand. She terrorizes them and throws the rock just in front of the boys. The boy doesn't get hit by that as it would have been fatal. The boys are afraid and threaten the girl that they will tell their parents about it and the consequences would be dire. But the girl is fuming with anger and yells at them that they can tell their mom about it and that even if they have parents. But having a personality like theirs depicts that it will be better if you do not have them. The boy is furious and wants to clash with the girl, but his friends stop him and ask him to let it go. She thinks for a second that she doesn't know what they will do as she only has her own life. The boys say that they already know that she's strange. Iron then tells them that they are pitiful and don't even know the word damage compensation properly, and picks up the rock again and yells at them, calling them amoebas. The boys see this and run away to save themselves. After the boys leave, the girl drops the rock and takes a sigh. As the boys go, Iron thinks she's pitiful and gets a flashback of her previous life as Lee Hyun because her brothers also taunted her that she wore low-level clothes in such a good school, and that they were embarrassed to tell their friends that she was their sister, and also told her that their friends would die of pity if they saw her with us and told her to stay away from their sight. Her mother also didn't treat him right, as his mother was talking to Grandma about the rising price of their house and that it was already twice as much as when Grandma gave it to the mother, and also told Grandma about sending their 2 sons to prestigious universities. And when she talked about her, Mother didn't even take her name and told Grandma that if no one wanted her, Mother would send her to a dormitory. She feels like an ugly duckling in her family, and it naturally happens like an influential person ignores and despises someone powerless. Her father ignored her, so her brothers considered her an ignorable object, and her brothers always got the best part of lunch. And all the accidents in the family were her fault, and that day, she came home late, went to a park, and was sitting on a swing and thinking about all the memories. But as Iron is lost in the memories, she hears the sound of a cat's meowing. She's surprised to see a cat and asks the cat for her friend as she finds the cat cute. She tells her they will sometimes talk like this and pats the cat. Iron has thought about the incident earlier and imagines the boy's mom coming to her and asking her for compensation for real, and what she could give them if that happens. She wants the cat to live with her, but the cat disappears and the girl feels lonely again. But the cat comes out of bush with her whole family. Iron is surprised that the cat has family and thinks everyone's so friendly, but feels lonely that no one is friendly to her. Suddenly, a little kitten plays with her foot and she realizes that she's not alone, a kid anymore. But she'll now go to Mela to eat a pudding and wish the cat good luck. As Iron is going to her room, Erno is watching her. Erno also sees everything about the incident with the boys and calls Iron a funny girl. Erno thinks that when the boys mocked Iron about the no home education thing, he thought Iron would cry, but she didn't and even threw a rock at her instead. Erno knows he was curious from the moment he saw Iron in the library for the first time as she was looking at the orphanage lost, and is surprised that if anyone is a native of the Edam family, he will do everything to hold on to that until the end somehow, and that it's unimaginable that a collateral girl to leave the Edam house. Erno planned to drop the ring in the library and waited outside for Iron to pick the call up, and knew that if she hadn't picked up the ring, it would have ended there. Erno didn't expect it, but the ring went under the shelf when she threw it in his hand. The energy he felt from the ring was clear, and he chuckled a little that even though she had that ability, she still wanted to leave the house. Erno is curious about Iron, so he wants to give Iron a gift and says that those who don't educate their children properly must lie for it. 1 week later, the New Year party is resuming, and Iron is being presented in front of the Duke as the last meeting ended on her turn, and the Duke wants to know why she's leaving. Iron talks about the secret of his birth, and Duke wants to know about it this time. As she talks about it, she wonders if it's an illusion or if there are more people than last time, and also feels that these people are all like homemakers waiting for the next episode. Iron knows she has the funds and is already ready to leave the house. When the Duke asks her again about the truth, a man comes forward and says that Iron's her daughter, and she goes with the flow and repeats the same. Iron is shocked as she realizes she looks up. The man is Erno Edam, the son of the Duke, claiming Iron as her daughter in front of all. Iron is shocked inside by what Erno is saying and wonders if she will see the sun of tomorrow morning. In the original novel, Erno Edam is a terrible hedonist who takes pleasure from whatever he wants. If Erno is not interested, he wouldn't make a move and would do whatever he wants to and have everything he wants. If Erno were tired of playing, he would break the things so one could have them. So Era knows she should avoid Erno if she wants an easy life. Iron is nervous, and when Erno stares at him with a smile, she realizes that she's already in Erno's sight and asks what Erno is saying. Duke tells Erno to stop making bad jokes and that a man of his status shouldn't step up. Erno laughs and replies that he isn't looking for a seat. He's looking out for her daughter, and the seat doesn't seem crucial ahead of her. Iron utters that she's not Erno's daughter and wants to tell the secret and leave. But why is Erno delaying it all? The matter picked up the heat. Duke was like a dragon, Erno was like a tiger, and Iron stood between them. She doesn't want to be a part of it, but Erno tells his father that if he doesn't believe him, he can ask his daughter, which makes Iron shudder a little. Erno asks Iron to tell her the truth. She knows Erno is shameless and lies to his father. She is nervous, but as Erno gazes at her with such eyes, she becomes even more nervous at speaking out loud that she's his daughter, and pats her head. The Duke is furious and tells Erno that he couldn't stay still at every New Year's party, and now he's bringing in someone else's child. And more than this time, it's that fluffy thing. Iron hears people murmuring in each other's ears and gets to know that it's not a new thing that is happening to her last time. Erno brought a boy but kicked him out after 4 months only, and they expected Iron to stay here for a maximum of half a year. Some people even bet that she wouldn't wait for 2 months. Iron knows that everybody's used to enjoying this sight. She remembers that in the original story, Erno uses people like chess, and he's used to letting it go lightly. Erno was like that when he became the heroine's adoptive father and when the people didn't like the heroine. But it was just a business relationship of necessity. Iron hears a good thing from the people. A lady says that she's sorry for the child. Still, that lady said that her husband told the lady that whenever Erno leaves someone, he gives that person enough money to buy a small island. The people start murmuring about what she would do with such huge cash, and Iron will only make a fuss about being with the Edams. Iron finds this fact as darkly sweet as she knows if she stays here for half a year, she can spend her last years on an island that belongs to her and imagines a beautiful future on that island and calls all this a part-time job of high reward. Iron looks at Erno with mixed emotions. Erno tells the Duke that the Duke can't change his successor too, even if he feels that unfair, and then stares at Iron with a smile, and then tells Duke about his New Year plans. Erno tells the Duke that he wants to be an excellent father to her daughter, who reunited late with him. The Duke shouts at Erno about how a man can be a good father if he isn't a good son. But Erno interrupts and tells the Duke to be quiet as his daughter is scared. Iron knows Erno is using him like a shield. Iron tells them that she isn't afraid of her grandpa, to which Erno tells her that her father will protect her anyway, so she shouldn't be scared. Iron tells them she isn't afraid and Grandpa is also incredible. She looks at Grandpa with a cute little face and asks Grandpa not to be angry. The Duke says okay but immediately starts saying he's never been angry and never will be. The Duke's both other sons in the back know that, too, that their father's still sore. The Duke has had enough, and he stands up and orders that the New Year's party is over and everybody will send their plans separately to his room. Duke murmurs in his mind that he isn't angry and is gutted. Erno grabs Iron, picks her up in his arms, and tells her they should go too. After the New Year's party, it seems like it will never end that Iron has become a fake daughter of Erno. As Erno is carrying her, she knows he wouldn't bring her for far and is stunned that Erno hates skinship, but doesn't he now? Iron thought that as soon as they left the banquet hall, Erno would throw him away, having played enough with her, but he was careful of his steps so that he doesn't falter and drop her. Iron feels she's precious to Erno the way he sees her and smiles, but Iron knows that to Erno, she's just a new toy, and she has to wait until he gets bored and pays her, and she leaves. Iron knows she doesn't have to keep good hopes and expect anything. As if you already wish you wouldn't be hurt, she knows that in the protagonist's original life, it was like that too, and she decides not to expect anything. Erno is carrying Iron in his arms and sees her and smiles. Several days have passed after that second New Year's party, and Iron is seen to be in a vast room decorated beautifully and wakes up in bed. Erno is there too, greets his daughter, and says good morning to her. Iron is still sleepy as she greets Erno but admires that he's still handsome even today. A week had passed since the New Year's gathering, and Erno then took Iron with him to his huge mansion and gave her a vast separate room as if he had prepared it for her in advance. Besides, Erno comes every day to her room and makes breakfast for her and does the same today and tells her that she needs to take breakfast now that she's awake. Erno tells Iron that he prepared soup and bread today, but she thinks of it too much for her. Iron feels happy and so good when Erno's feeding her, and the 23-year-old inside her is crying about this. Although she prefers to be served differently, she does find the rice very tasty. Erno asks Iron if she wants anything today and pinches her cheeks as he does daily. But Iron is confused if she should tell him that she likes gifts. Iron thinks she likes to have money, but it will be too snobbish. Erno told Iron that he'd bring Mela soon, too, so should I tell them what I need? She then tells Erno the truth that she would like to have an account, and Erno asks if it is a bank account she's talking about, to which Iron says yes. In the novel I Need to Be Adopted, the bank account differs from the real world as the magic tower runs the bank. They do not make a passbook for the account. It is thoroughly protected with triple magic and barriers, and they give the owner the safest safe in the world, and only the owner can access it. At the moment, Erno is so kind that he will give anything. But from the point of view of a 23-year-old, she has just seen fake love and care and expects nothing from Erno. Erno asks if she wants money, to which she says that she wants to raise money. Iron knows it's just like a play where she's playing the role of a homely and affectionate daughter of Erno et.m. She's an extra for the part of a cute daughter, so she has no right to demand anything, expect anything, and wait for the day she'll be kicked out. Iron wants an account so that when she gets kicked out, at least she has some cash to rely on. And she doesn't want to be a walking ATM all the time. Iron isn't expecting anything but still makes a request. As Erno ponders it, he passes an evil smile and realizes that her daughter is trying to escape the house. Erno tells her that creating an account is simple, but Iron is shocked. Erno tells her to go right away. They both go out in the market, and Iron is surprised to see all this, as it is his first time out. It mesmerized her to see the beauty of the famous Rappan shop furniture, and finds it more impressive than she imagined. Erno is glad that she liked it. Erno asks if she wants to play with toys as there's a shop here. She tells Erno she hasn't played with toys, so that's okay, and a sufficient account will be enough. Iron knows that parents who don't care about their children don't buy them toys, and she also wasn't related to toys in her previous life, so she doesn't know if it'll be fun. Erno picks her up in her arms, understands her, and takes her to a toy shop. As Erno talks to Iron, the shopkeeper gets angry that the shop's not open yet. Erno asks if he's the owner, and the shopkeeper replies yes, to which Erno throws a bag of gold coins at the shopkeeper. Erno tells him it's 50 gold coins and that he wants all the toys in the store. It flabbergasted the shopkeeper to see 50 gold coins. It frustrates Iron that it's a lot of toys, and she doesn't need them. Erno tells her that if she doesn't like them, they'll throw them away and asks if she wants to choose herself. As Erno talks to the shopkeeper about buying the shop, Iron shouts that she'll choose herself. As it's a world where magic exists, there are some strange toys, but some of them are so strange that one can't get enough of them. Iron thinks that it's not worth 50 gold coins, and she would rather have the coins than toys. Erno teases her time after time, in which she says that she'll choose and stay calm. Iron wanders around and finds all the toys useless but sees a tiger doll, and chooses it out of all. She brings the doll and tells Erno, to which he asks why he chose this tiger doll. Iron tells Erno that it looks like her father, and that's why she chose it. Everybody at the shop is happy to see her love for her father, and Erno is also impressed by the cuteness. Erno knows that he can't do anything if her daughter wants this. Iron knew that this act of hers would move Erno. Erno asks the shopkeeper how many of these are left. The shopkeeper shows him the stock, and Erno asks how many have bought this before, to which the shopkeeper tells him that he's the first one. Erno then snaps his finger and fires those similar toys, saying he wants to get rid of them. The shopkeeper worries that his ambitious work is on fire and asks for water. Erno throws another bag of coins on the shopkeeper's face and tells him not to make a fuss. Erno assures them that the fire will only burn the dolls and disappear immediately. Erno tells them he hopes they wouldn't sell more of these. The shopkeepers bow down to Erno, thanking him even after their shop caught fire. Erno says that now only my daughter will have it, and no one will ever have this one. He asks Iron if she's happy, and Iron can't tell him otherwise, so she says yes. The story moves on, and Erno feeds Iron some pudding and asks if it's delicious. Iron finds it tasty. Someone spoils her fun. Duke Myrle. She wonders why she's eating in front of everyone at the meeting. The Adam family holds regular weekly meetings as they lead the largest military project and run many businesses, so they often discuss the projects and business at regular meetings. The family's direct descendants must come, and it's an important meeting that essential positions in the right hands or Duke must attend. Duke Myrle is the most sensitive, and you can't even make a single breath wrong in front of the Duke during the meeting. Duke notices Erno feeding Iron in such a severe meeting and asks Erno about his wrongdoings. Erno replies that even though it's his daughter's snack time, he still participates in the discussion. Duke is furious at that behavior. Iron feels she'll die of hatred of the Duke before Erno abandons her. Iron tells Erno and Duke Myrle in a cute voice that she won't eat the pudding and assures them that Iron won't be a bad girl and will be a good girl, so Grandpa and Father should please stop scolding her. Her words moved Duke, and he agreed that this fluffy thing was good at talking. Duke Myrle nods that it's okay and not Iron's fault, and if she wants, she can eat 10 or 20 puddings too. Erno then feeds Iron the pudding again, and Duke feels Erno is the biggest problem here and is a little irritated. Iron feels that the permission of the Duke might not be pure, but the pudding is so tasty that she can't control her emotions, and it is expressed on her face. Everybody in the meeting, even his usually stern grandpa, admires her cuteness and feels love for her. Then Duke Myrle comes on to the main point, business, and asks about the weapons to be transported to the neighboring country, and his people tell him that everything's okay, but the materials are still scarce. Duke Myrle asks about the floating stone in the current, on which he gets to know that the more they dig, the lower the quality of the stone, and the quantity is limited too. Erno pulls Iron close and gives a menacing smile to everybody so that everybody minds their business. As the talk goes on, Iron realizes what the topic is, the floating stone, which is one of the most essential elements of this novel. It is a stone that floats in the sky and is a resource, and the heroine in the story discovers the entrance to the floating stone mine. And there's an incident about that in the novel too, but Iron wonders why she was even there. That place was behind the dukedom in the mountains. Iron understands the heroine found it because she has everything in this novel. But it's different now, and since Iron is here and knows everything about this world before, she will take this chance to avoid Erno's whims and feels sorry for the heroine who's coming later. Even after knowing everything, she still asks about the floating stone from Erno. He tells her it's just a useless flying stone in the sky, shows her an illusion of the stone out of his magic, and guides her that a small amount, when mixed with iron, makes a suitable alloy and can craft weapons. Iron scoffs inside about it being a useless stone, but deep inside, she knows this stone will soon change the game of war and bring a revolution. Erno asks Iron why she asked about it, to which Iron claims she saw a stone flying in the sky. Everybody is stunned, and Duke Myrle hits the table so hard with his fist that it is divided in half. Duke Myrle is more serious than ever and asks Iron to confirm what she just said. Iron is scared and wonders if this is the dragon's bloodline strength that he divides a big thick table in half with a punch. Other people also start asking questions about the floating stone, where it is, and even if she saw the natural stone. Erno shouts 10 steps and everybody steps back from Iron and warns everybody that they should maintain 10 steps when they talk to his daughter. Everybody apologizes, but Duke Myrle wasn't to be restricted by that. Duke comes forward and asks its location, to which Iron assures Duke she knows the place and tells him it's the mountain at the back. Iron points at the hill from the window, and Duke can't believe a stone could be behind his residence. The people wonder if she's right about the rock in the back mountain, but they agree they didn't investigate that mountain as they never imagined it could be there. They all agree to check that up, and Erno pats Iron and asks why she knows so much. Someone comes and calls the Duke and whispers something into Duke's ears, and Duke says about a child's daughter being in the wrong place like that. Duke announces that today's meeting ends here, and everybody is surprised at what's happened. But Iron knows what's coming from the heroine, but she wonders if it isn't too fast. Iron bites her nails and wonders if the main heroine, whom everybody loves in the novel, she'll be forgotten soon. Iron expresses his curiosity that sometimes he doesn't know what Iron is thinking about. Erno takes Iron as it's late and tells her he'll introduce someone to her tomorrow, and Iron is more curious than ever and nervous. Erno puts Iron in bed and asks if the pudding is good, and Iron agrees. Erno assures her she can eat it whenever she wants, but Iron is thinking about only one thing. This role play of father and daughter will end soon when the heroine arrives, but Iron is prepared for this all. Iron says goodnight to Iron, who's still thinking about the ignorance she'll receive when the heroine comes. The scene starts as Iron asks her father if that mansion belongs to her, and Erno says yes and tells her that even the butler, the maid, and 30 servants will move just for Iron too. Iron calls him the best father. Erno is giving the 100 million gold to Iron as he promised in front of everyone. As Iron is about to grab that, Erno pulls his hand back, shouts at Iron to get out, and calls her a fool. Iron can't understand why. Erno agonizingly screams that only if he had known that Iron was a nasty dragon sooner. Iron turned into a dragon, and they kicked Iron out, and she couldn't believe it ended like this. Iron shouts no, and suddenly, she wakes up and realizes it was just a terrible dream, and everything's fine. Her heartbeat is fast, and she's sweating. The next day, Mela is here, and as she sees Iron in a beautiful dress, she praises Iron for looking good in any attire she wears. Mela enthusiastically continues that all clothes are made for Iron and that she's incredible. But Iron feels Mela is more motivated after coming into the mansion. Then, Iron tells Mela she has to go and takes her father's look-alike doll. Iron goes out, assuming his father's outside his room. But she notices that it's not Erno but his 2 sons talking to each other and saying that the girl here is Iron. And they realize Iron is a child from up close. They tell Iron their father told them to bring you to the table. These 2 are Erno's sons, Kalian Adam and Cillian Adam. The red-haired boy is Kalian Adam, who's a little short-tempered, but as he grows up, he becomes the greatest wizard. And the younger one is Cillian Adam, a very calm and highly talented swordsman. Iron finds them both precisely similar to their father, Erno. Kalian asks Iron to go with her as father's waiting already. As they're walking, Iron is so short that she has to run to get along with Kalian and Cillian. Iron suddenly remembers the dream she saw last night and knows that Erno hates reptiles, and even in the original novel, it is mentioned several times. She fears she might turn into a dragon on a primary day, but she notices that they both are too fast to catch. Iron stops and calls the brothers to tell them they're way too fast, and as they turn around, she questions the looks in their eyes. Iron imagines if both Kalian and Cillian turn out to be the same as everyone and might scold her that she's stupid and that they feel sorry that their father and mother gave birth to her. So she stops yelling and tells the brothers that it's okay. She's slow. Iron tells them they can go first, she'll come later. Kalian goes back to Iron and calls her while moving his hand to her. But Iron shrinks a little as she thinks Kalian might hurt her. Kalian puts his hand on her head and asks her why she is following them foolishly if she doesn't want to come with them. Kalian picks up the doll and requests that Cillian pick her up on his shoulders. He said Iron says that she's heavy, but Cillian is a strong lad. Cillian takes her on his shoulders and moves forward with Kalian. Kalian wants to give Iron advice and advises her not to get too attached to her father as he plays pranks like this often, and that she shouldn't get hurt by what her father says. Iron realizes Kalian is surprisingly a good guy. Kalian tells her that his father doesn't like him too much, but it's okay. Cillian lifts her off her shoulders in front of the door. Iron turns back and says she's okay too and smilingly says she has a secret of hers too, which both brothers wonder what that could be. As Iron opens the massive door to the table where Erno is sitting, she sees Erno sitting in front, dressed like a true royal gentleman. Erno asks Iron if she slept well, and Iron runs towards Erno, saying she missed him a lot. Erno thanks his sons for bringing Iron all right. Erno feels by the looks on his son's face that something's wrong and might be with Iron, on which they both immediately assure their father that everything's okay. Kalian tells Erno that he has heard that they're suddenly vacating the mansion, on which Erno feels they might have found his sister's daughter. Kalian asks if Erno's talking about that old aunt that ran away from home. Erno says yes and is continuously pinching his cheeks of Iron. Erno asks her daughter about the doll, which she says is perfect and soft and warm. Even at night, she sleeps with the beauty too, and she thanks Erno for such a valuable gift. Erno suddenly feels a red spark in his ring, and suddenly a red spark of light hits Erno rings, and he leaves Iron, and the doll falls to the ground. Erno calls Kalian twice and asks him to take Iron with him and run away from here. Sicilian asks his father if he's okay, but Erno orders them to take Iron away and run hard. Iron sees her father sitting on the ground, wondering what's happening to him. Erno is getting mad, and he breaks the table too. Kalian tells Iron that they need to go now. It was the secret of the Edom family that sometimes they feel the urge to kill when their magical powers fade, and people call it berserk. Iron remembers the people called it berserk as Erno is holding his head in sheer distress. As fumes of dark magic surround Erno and get angrier, Iron remembers she might have read about berserk in the novel and can't believe she didn't recognize it. Erno Edom's berserk sometimes pops out even when wearing a magic suppression accessory. According to the original story, one day, Erno was sitting and eating with his family in a greenhouse, and out of nowhere, he turned berserk and killed dozens of servants. So when Duke Myril learned about this, he ordered to put Erno on probation for a while, and he became a true monster of the Edom family, and today again, history might repeat itself. Kalian orders Cillian to go out and spread the evacuating news while he is with Iron. Sicilian asks them to be careful. Iron feels her father's pain and knows she can't leave him alone. Iron puts pressure on his mind and knows there must be a cure. Iron remembers a scene from the original novel in which Kalian and Cillian are talking about a warm and shadowing tree in the greenhouse of their father, and Kalian tells Cillian that the fruit has finally developed. Now they've found the cure for berserk. As Iron is finished remembering, she leaves Kalian alone, who's worried that Iron shouldn't go out alone as it's not safe. But Iron is just not meant to be stopped there and assures Kalian that she's coming back in no time. Iron understands that it's baffling, but she knows that if Erno gets probation, her money, her island, and her mansion will vanish away, and she'll be left with nothing and homeless. The play that seemed like a dream for her would end too soon. This motivated Iron, and she ran as hard as possible. As she's out there looking for that tree, she finds the tree and remembers the words from the novel that in the warmest place, covered with a large blanket of shade, a tree of red berries. There's another flashback from the original novel in which Kalian and Cillian were surprised that the tree was near them in their father's greenhouse. It bears fruit all year, and they both feel that their mother might know something about this tree or that this might be a present from her to us. Iron knows that the red berries of this tree are the main component of the cure for berserk. Iron takes out her little bag with gold coins in it, ponders for a second, then throws all of them on the ground and thinks she'll return to find them later. Iron tends to be careful as there are a lot of thorns on this tree. As she tries to grab the first berry, she gets pinched by a thorn, and it hurts her a little, but she has to get the berries as fast as possible. Anyhow, she gets a bag full of red berries and feels good. Iron then thinks she must return and feed her father all the berries. As she's about to return, she hears a scream from the dining hall. It was a boy as Erno had pulled him up from his neck and strangled him hard. The boy was screaming for help, and at just the right time, Iron entered the room and shouted to father to distract Erno. Erno throws the boy away on the floor and then moves toward Iron with a menacing smile. Iron is terrified a little, but she gathers her breath and understands that Erno is the one who's in pain here the most. Iron understands that being shunned in the worst of times is the most heartbreaking and miserable thing, as in her previous life as a 23-year-old girl. As Erno approaches her, Iron tries to bring Erno back by shouting father, but he isn't meant to listen in that state. Kalian hears all this and thrashes the door open as he looks for Iron, but he sees Erno has pulled her up, grabbed his neck, and strangled him, and shouts Iron. Iron is an intelligent girl and knows what she's doing. She bites the hand of Erno, and he leaves her neck, and immediately she pulls out a handful of berries from the bag and forcefully puts them into Erno's mouth while falling. Erno falls to the side and swallows the berries. Iron then rushes to Erno again and shuts his mouth so he chews and swallows them properly instead of spitting them out. Sooner, dark magic fumes fade away, and Erno becomes unconscious for a minute. She wonders if the berries worked. Iron then grabs some more berries from the floor and wants to put them into Erno's mouth as she doesn't want to see even a little sight of them. As she's about to make Erno eat more berries, Erno grabs his hand and calls her name as he's back conscious. Erno holds Iron's hands and stares at her with pure love and emotions, which makes Iron emotional. She also requests her father not to get angry as she's scared. Erno assures Iron that Dad's not angry and why he would be angry with her daughter. Erno holds her close and tells her to calm down as everything's alright now. Tears start falling from Iron's eyes. While crying, she sees her father's doll, which doesn't look in good condition and seems torn apart. She wonders if it's broken, but she has to check it now. Dahlia is lying in her bed, talking to Erno Edam, who sits beside her on a sofa reading a book, telling him how children were blind and no matter how scared they were, just because you are their parent, they would give you eternal affection. No matter what you do, the child will still. But Erno Edam is uninterested and interrupts her, saying it is her stupid point of view. Dahlia is annoyed and scolds him to let her finish the story and listen to the end. She then says that no matter what sins you've committed, ugly or cruel, don't you think they would only see your best side? She says that if he met someone like that, he would change. But Erno Edam is not interested in this ideology and tells her how he repeats this a lot, that she is such an ideal romanticist. Dahlia is frustrated and says she wishes to have a cute daughter at times like this because men are weak to daughters. Erno Edam is still focused on his book and says they already have 3 children. It's enough. But this is exactly why Dahlia now wants her child to be a daughter, so he would know too that there are people in the world you cannot help but love. And maybe, who knows, Ian might change his world. Therefore, she looks happily at her pregnant stomach and wishes he would not be lonely anymore. As she says this, she looks at him longingly from her bed. But she could only say that so openly because she never gave birth to her 3rd child, as she passed away before she could do so. As the scene changes, Kalian runs towards his father, who holds Iron on his lap, worried sick, asking if he is okay. Erno Edam puts his finger under Iron's nose to check if she is breathing and says that, fortunately, Iron was not seriously hurt but looking serious. A scream is heard, and the door opens, revealing a breathless, panicked Mailer running into the room. Kalian angrily asks how dare she disrespect his father, but she says that was not it. Erno Edam recalls how usually there would be messy chaos in the surroundings and a prejudiced look, full of fear, running away for their lives. Once the berserk begins, there is only one way to stop it. A dragon chess piece is crushing the tiger doll. An opponent stronger than a berserker would be forcibly subdued by force. However, the Duke of Myrle or the family's eldest son could knock him down. We're both out of town, so no one could stop him from hurting and killing servants and others, remembering how he choked the young man. But this little kid, Iron, stopped his berserk by feeding him the red berries. As Erno Edam was carrying Iron out of the room, his eyes landed on the tiger doll, torn from its ears and torso as wool spilt out of it. He summons the doll to his hands through his mana. Looking at the doll, he remembers how Iron loved it, liking it the best among the other toys. He feels sad as he did not mean to burn down everything. This scene is being witnessed by Cillian, who is peeking through the door, trying to gather his confidence by pumping himself, and then steps inside asking his father about Iron. To which Kalian replies, letting him know that she was okay, it was all over, so he should take it easy. As Cillian closes the door behind him, making a squeaking sound, he asks his brother and father how the berserk was handled, albeit slightly nervous. Kalian shrugs him off, following his father as they exit the room, and tells him that he will explain it later to him, and tells him first to find the red berries and bring them to his lab, throwing the berry satchel to him, claiming that this was the key ingredient in fixing the berserk despite Cillian's protests, silencing him with a please and walking away. Unwillingly, Cillian sighs and is relieved that no one died today. Erno Edam is carrying his daughter, walking through the luminescent hallway with Kalian following him, who nervously asks if the fruit stopped him from going berserk. Erno sighs and agrees that it seemed like that, and Kalian continues looking at Iron that he had been looking for it. But how did she know about that? Erno Edam replies that because she has many secrets, that is why. The sentence makes Kalian stop in his tracks and asks his father to stop this prank right here, as he feels sorry for her. And she also helped his father this time, saying that Erno Edam signed the contract with that guy last year anyway, and it is not the same with her, Cillian and him. But his request is interrupted by Erno Edam saying it is none of Kalian's business. Kalian protests that she took a risk to save him, but he is warned by his father not to make him say it twice. The aura surrounding them shifts to dark, scaring Kalian, who excuses himself. Erno Edam thanks him for his work and tells him to leave as he walks up the stairs into her room, leaving Kalian slightly stressed. Upstairs, in the bedroom, maids are tending to an unconscious Iron on her bed, wiping her with wet compresses. All the while, Erno Edam stands on the side, arms crossed. He thinks about his wife, Dahlia, softly appearing through the heavenly curtains, calling him Marie knowingly. Still, he denies, saying he was only joking, but she does not believe him. Iron soon woke up confused on her bed, wondering where she was. She suddenly remembers Gold and sits up screaming. Hearing this, Mela comes running in, concerned. Mela is emotional seeing Iron awake as she wipes her tears, saying how Iron was unconscious for a week, making her so worried. Iron is shocked to hear that she was sleeping for a week, Mela saying that she was so worried that her heart was beating so soft day by day. But Iron is tense at that, thinking that if a week has passed by, then it means that she would have arrived by now. Seeing her anxious makes Mela concerned that her miss was feeling uncomfortable. But Iron thought about the possibility that she must have come. Mela is confused and asks, "Who do you mean?" Outside the mansions, some maids are cleaning and are seen relaxing when they hear a little girl ask them a question. The black-haired little girl asks them about the Duke's office. The maid tells her to go to the second floor in the end of the hallway. The pretty little lady thanks the maids and cutely walks in. The maids comment on how she is the cutest girl she has ever seen, and she might be the daughter of an aristocrat or the princess who was being looked after all the time. But the other maid does not believe her. The little girl is none other than the female protagonist of the original story. Charney Edom is the main character of I Thought I Was Adopted, but I was mistaken. Where I live now, Charney can vanish berserk and has a personality like sunshine. Many people in the novel love her. She is the child who gradually melted even the cruel and cold heart of Erno Edom. Erno uses her only when necessary, but as the story develops, they all open up little by little, as they would eat together like a family and even bring presents for her. She is a precious existence born of a cold-blooded father, a heroine everyone loves. She read the novel religiously, and this heroine was the highlight of I Need to Be Adopted, the reason why she was so excited. She also wanted to like the heroine so her family would love her. But she soon realizes that whatever she had dreamed of was just an illusion. She then places the tablet on the desk next to her documents and lays her head down, feeling sad. She thinks that she is not a heroine. Back in the novel's universe, Mela is spoon-feeding Iron some soup and is saying that everyone was worried about her. How Master Kalian and Master Cillian came to visit her almost every day. And the Duke even asked Mela to come and tell him as soon as Iron wakes up. And when Iron asks the maid about her father, Erno Edom, she hesitates before saying that Sir Erno Edom came once a few days ago. After that, she trails off and assures Iron that he was probably busy, that is why, and explains that the Duke brought the daughter of the deceased princess, and from what Mela heard, there was talk of adoption going back and forth. Iron agrees that would be right. Mela continues that this time she brought her thin soup instead of pudding. How could she eat well without making a fuss? Mela wishes it would be nice to have a daughter who is as calm as Iron and thanks her for the compliment. Mela replies that she is more grateful, thanks to Iron, that Mela was enjoying this luxury as she dutifully feeds her soup. Iron is confused about the mention of luxury, to which Mela explains that getting a promotion, getting a pay raise, and seeing such a cute girl every day is the luxury she is getting because it seems like Iron has been blessed by a god, making the little girl giggle, and Mela agrees. But then the aura shifts around the maid as she tells her to continue like this and that the little girl must listen to her carefully. The little girl is confused, but Mela changes the topic and tells her to be prepared as the time has come. She shows the little girl a pink dress and tells her to get ready to go to the Duke slowly. Soon they stand outside the Duke's room as the guard allows them to enter, as Mela thanks him. Iron thinks that once the door opens, the heroine will. She wonders if she will be okay, and tells herself not to expect chamiso, as if she won't expect anything, then she surely won't be disappointed. She would be going back and forth as if nothing happened. The door opens, and she finds herself in the presence of the Duke, her father, and Charney Edom, who stands behind the Duke, clutching his dress. Iron cheerfully greets her grandfather and father and then looks at Charney, recognizing her. The Duke welcomes her, calling her Fluffy, but her father only looks at her once before looking away. Iron is unaffected by his ignorance on the outside, but inside, she thinks he is interested in her already. It's okay, she didn't expect anything and was only slightly surprised. The Duke continues saying to Fluffy there was a floating stone at the place she told him about, and thanks to her, business is back on track. And while he was away, Erno Edom said she helped him while the Duke was away. Iron says yes, her father was sick, so she helped him. Duke thinks about this and asks if she knows the price of iron. But Iron is confused, so he explains that the price is that those who do a reasonable job should be given a fair reward. This surprises both Iron and the Duke says to describe it, he'll grant your wish, say whatever you want. Whether it's a business right, a direct descendant's last name, he'll give it to you. She is happy to hear this and thinks that if it was her wish, then it is obvious that she doesn't need business rights or family names of direct descendants. Iron steps to her grandfather, the Duke, and says she only wants money, transfer to my bank account 1 million roasts, please. She thinks the monetary unit of this world of I need to be adopted and the Korean currency unit are the same. The Duke is shocked to hear this, and he asks her if she said she wants 1 million roasters now. She nods and thinks that 1 million would be enough. The Duke sighs, and Iron is confused, thinking, is 1 million a lot, even if he has a lot of money? The Duke then raises his platinum-grade bracelet and asks if she thinks it is only worth that much in your opinion, and transfers the money, saying he thinks the value of the information she gave is a deposit amount of 100 million, making the total remaining 110 million. At least that is what he thinks seems right. She is jumping with joy, thanking God. She thinks that 100 million that she had never seen before in her previous life. But just as she thinks Iron is picked up by her father, she thanks her grandfather. He smiles at her and scolds her, saying she shouldn't pick up anything and eat it like this. But actually, Erno Edom withdraws the amount from her bracelet, 100 million, all of it, confusing her. But he continues that it is a bad habit. If she does it wrong, she will stomach ache, and the Duke will call her a stupid child. She is shocked and calls him a crazy psychopath on the inside. But he taps the bracelet again, saying he got it, daughter, and deposits 1 billion, making the total remaining 1.01 billion. The little girl is surprised as he appears like a god of wealth to her. But this sweet moment is disturbed by the Duke, who scolds Erno Edom, saying he always does everything he can and tells him to hurry up and start the Charney adoption process as T will be of great help to him. But Erno Edom smiles, hugging Iron, and tells him that he already clearly told him, my lord, that he already has a daughter. Still, the Duke is angry, saying he is not asking him to play house, and Charney has the power to calm berserk. And no matter how messed up, he wouldn't want his children to get hurt. She thinks that's right. The ending was decided from the beginning. Erno Edom settles her down and tells her she should go to her room and that he will pick her up at dinner. She agrees and leaves the room, thinking how an extra like her would be Erno Edom's real daughter. She convinces herself that she is okay and has made money, and she knows all the orphanages to go into, and it's all perfect. Everything is fine, she says as she closes the doors. But it is a little bit sad. But it's okay, she calls out to Mela, and the maid and the guard at the door are surprised as she came out early. But whatever. Iron says that she got some pocket money, that's all. Iron then tells the maid that she is tired, so she'll go and take a nap first, to which Mela says that she will make the bed for her. But Iron says that it's okay, she can do it alone, and runs away happily, saying she will see Mela later, despite the maid's protests that she would do it. But as Iron walks away, Mela thinks that until the end, Iron chose only the pretty things. As she looks out the window, Mela thinks it's a little earlier than planned should she fulfill her mission now. At 5 p.m., in the annex, the sun sets and Iron sneaks around the mansion, looking for anyone around there. She thinks about what she is doing now as she looks sad. She thinks about herself that she is Iron, a dragon beast who is about to run away. The day before, she was packing her things in preparation for running away by bringing stolen goods from the annex under the bed where she was hiding her stolen gems and money. Now she is trying to infiltrate something which she has never done in her life. She thinks it was good that she looked innocent as she met soldiers on the way, but they did not suspect me. Now as long as she has the last gem. Her thoughts are interrupted as she sees the maid Mela quietly going somewhere. Iron thinks about how she is going while carrying someplace, making her curious about what is going on. Then she heard someone saying that this time they would be in charge of the first floor. From the door, Mela entered. But she shrugged the confusion off as this was not the time for that, and she should hurry up and go into the room, as today it could be her last dinner with Erno Edom. Mela is waking the little girl as it is morning. Iron is confused as she wakes up on her bed and remembers that she was supposed to have dinner with her father last night. Mela hears her saying that and asks about the dinner with Sir Erno Edom. Sir Erno Edom had something to do yesterday, so that he couldn't leave his room. She then comments that it's no wonder she didn't change her clothes. Iron replies, confused, right. I have gone nowhere, right. She thinks that come to think of it, she went to the annex yesterday, and fell asleep waiting for Erno Edom until 9 o'clock on the bed. Of course, now the heroine is here, she is forgotten now. But Mela says that it is because he received a probationary order. Iron is confused about the probationary order, but the maid says that she does not know the details. But she heard the Duke was furious at her father. But Iron is still sad as she thinks he didn't come to see her on purpose because he did not like her anymore. The thought shocks her as she slams her fists on the bed, thinking of not expecting anything. She then asks the maid if she could see her father. Mela replies the lady will probably be allowed to come in. Iron says let's go, and soon she is running down the hall saying goodbye to Mela for later as she backs off from a certain distance where the servants are allowed. Iron then opens the door saying hello to her father, excusing herself inside the room. However, she sees Erno Edam and the little girl Charnie holding hands upon entry. Seeing this, she apologizes and excuses herself as he is busy with the heroine. But before she could leave, Erno Edam stops her, saying he is not busy and invites his daughter in. She runs in, falling into his lap. She then looks up at his father and asks if his grandfather scolded him last night. Her father replies, "Iron, have you ever seen a sword that breathes flame?" She asks why the sudden question, to which he says she will see it soon enough in 3, 2, 1. The door opens with a blast revealing an angry Duke wielding a sword as he yells Erno at him. It is not enough to chew on him. How dare he steal a mine and the family name and put it in his name? Do you have an idea or not? Iron, who recognizes the flame as Dragon's relic, witnesses the scene. She thinks it is the dragon fire. It's my first time seeing it in person. Erno Edam tells his father that he has to be honest. My lord, you said to yourself that you would give me mine, don't you remember? But the Duke is not having that and says stop talking nonsense. When did I tell you? But then he remembers him saying if he was going to live such a miserable life in the future. Erno Edam then knows that the only legacy that will go to him is the mountain behind him. Erno Edam continues, you said that correctly in the office 2 years ago, making the Duke stutter in confusion but then gets angry, saying that this was nonsense. Are you going to reject it then and then accept it now? Stop talking nonsense and bring it back right away. But Erno Edam smiles as he says no, his utter refusal shocking the Duke into silence as Erno Edam tells him to please leave, my lord. I have something to talk about with my daughter. But as he is protesting about not being done yet, Erno Edam snaps his fingers and makes the Duke teleport into the lawn, surrounded by some cute little puppies as one of the dogs leaps up to the man and licks his face, making him scream in anger at his name. Meanwhile, in the room, Erno Edam praises Iron, saying well done, my daughter, and summons the doll and tells her he was supposed to give it to her at dinner yesterday, and apologizes that I'm sorry that it's my daughter's #1 treasure. Iron remembers the doll and is happy to see and thinks it was safe then and thinks it became softer. She smiles happily and thanks her father, saying she'll take it more. The scene makes the other two confused. Erno Edam agrees, and then Charnie says excuse me, it's super cute. Can I rub it once? Iron is happy and says yes wherever and however she wants. But to her surprise, she rubbed Iron's cheeks instead, saying they were so fresh, soft, and fluffy like milk and bread. The sensation confuses Iron as she calls Charnie, her sister, to wait a minute. But hearing the word sister makes Charnie confused as she steps back, making Iron think that wasn't she their sister. Wouldn't that be okay? She then apologizes to Charnie, saying sorry she thought Charnie was a sister. But the black-haired girl is happy to hear this and runs to hug Iron, calling her cute, despite her struggle in the hug as it was suffocating for her, and she is 5 years old. And since she is 8 years old, she should call him Charnie's sister and call her cute. She continues saying it happened to be quite good if only she had a cute little sister, and she wishes they could have told her earlier. She then says, please take care of me, let's get along well in the future, my little sister. Erno Edam is seeing this all with silence. Iron is walking the halls, thinking she should run away for real this time, tonight. The female lead has also arrived at the mansion, and as far as the original novel goes, there would be no room for me to intervene. No more intervening as Charnie will be taking her place soon enough. She remembers that even her father, Erno Edam's eyes back then were a bit different from before, saying no, of course, this must happen. Because the heroine came in, there is another real reason who is the novel's main character, as she cannot even be compared with. Because she shines so brightly as she plays the harmonica. Watching her, she realizes that there is a light around her that she can never defeat. Soon the girls are sitting at the table drinking tea. As they have a conversation, Charnie tells her that she is having a private meeting with Grandpa, and they ask her to come up and see Grandfather in the afternoon. And other than that, she is free too. Iron thinks that this means that the Berserk must be truly happening again. As in the original timeline, the heroine was often called for her purification ability. Iron only replies with an I see, but then Charnie takes a spoonful of the pudding, tells her little sister that she would feed the little one herself, and tells her to open her mouth. Hearing this, she is horrified but then puffs her cheeks as she opens her mouth to take a bite. Charnie is pleased to see this as she calls her cute repeatedly for being so adorable, and lovely even as she eats, hugging her with love. The hug leaves Iron breathless as Charnie tells herself to be lucky to have Iron, because everything in this house was unfamiliar to her from the time she stepped into the mansion, and Charnie was worried a lot about that, but now she is relieved to have a cute little sister like Iron. Iron hugs her back and assures her that her father buys the pink-haired girl lots of toys and delicious things, and once she gets used to it, she will be okay here too. But then Charny tells her that she hates being Erno Adam's daughter, and that she only came here because she needed a guardian. She came in here involuntarily, and if it wasn't for that, if it only wasn't for that. Charny thinks sadly. Iron is confused at the scene as she thinks about whether Charny originally had this personality. And even if she didn't like the original one, she was not this grumpy. But then again, it might be because it was still the novel's beginning, as in the future, there would be many incidents where Erno Adam and Charny would get closer. Especially that incident. The first thing that happened after the heroine came was the dragon artifact theft case. It would not be long before someone here, someone from the Adam family, would steal the dragon relic and run away in the incident. In the Adam family, it is said that each artifact chooses its owner, and there are 3 dragon artifacts. The first one is the Flame of Blaze, a sword owned by Myril. The second one is the Fragment of Balance, a sapphire earring owned by Erno Adam, and the third and last one is the Dragon Orb, the artifact that would be stolen this time. The second artifact, the Balance Fragment, which in other words is an object that brings out the balance. The adoption saved Erno Adam's unstable mind at the beginning, when Duke Myril took Erno Adam out of Enhamion, which is also why it is not easy to get rid of. But anyway, Iron thinks that with the heroine solving the theft case, the relationship between Charny and Erno gets closer. But the problem is that Iron cannot remember the person who stole the artifact. She worries that she read the novel several times over and over, so why can't she remember? She wonders if she should stop the theft, but thinks taking charge of another heroine's incident would be wrong. Seeing Iron lost in thought, Charny asks her what she is worried about. Iron tries to reassure her, but Charny presses her to tell him if she has any concerns so that Charny will help her. Even though it has not been a while since they met, Iron genuinely seems like her sister, so whatever the problem is, they'll solve it together. But Iron assures her that she is thinking of nothing special. She was thinking about the menu for dinner tonight, reassuring her. Charny then takes her little sister's hand and tells her to always be happy without any worries. She thinks that she always used to want to be like the heroine. She remembers lying on her bed reading the novel and liking that everyone loved the heroine. She liked Charny, someone who was sweet and kind to everyone. In the novel, Iron tells Charny that she is her older sister, so she will make her happier. She thinks of a promise to surpass the original novel, as she wants to strengthen the relationship between Charny and Erno Adam. Charny, the heroine she likes, will make her happier than in the original version. Charny thanks her for that, saying she is glad to hear that from Iron, to which Iron also asks her to tell me if she wants any help. She then puts the luggage bag she packed for running away. She puts it back deep in her closet that night, deciding to stay. At night, as Mela is helping Iron with her outfit, the maid asks her if she has prepared the gift. But Iron is confused about that, to which Mela clarifies that today is Prince Erno Adam's birthday. Iron is immensely shocked by the news because she does not know. Mela says that since she is the only daughter of Prince Erno Adam, she should be the first to give him a present. She wonders if there was such a setting in the original novel. But her thoughts are interrupted by Mela, who tells her if she forgot, then there is a gift that will make the young Duke thrilled if she gives it to him. The earrings that Prince Erno Adam always wears. Hearing this, Iron was reminded of her thoughts yesterday. Mela continues, the earrings are marble with other fragments, and if Iron collects all of them, the young Duke won't turn scary. This makes her think that the culprit wasn't such a significant role in the novel, just an extra in debt and in need of money. Mela says that she knows where the rest of the fragments are, so if she gives this present to Erno Adam, he will adopt Miss Iron instead of Miss Charny. Iron asks the maid if this means she could stay with Mela then, to which she agrees and asks her to do a favor. Hearing this, he remembers the culprit who stole the artifact while Mela asks her repeatedly for the favor. She remembers the culprit to be. Mela asked Iron how she was doing and whether she would listen to her request. And as she is asking that, the atmosphere turns ominous as she does because she remembers the culprit just then. And it is none other than Mela. The maid attempts to sweeten up the deal as she expects Iron to listen to her like always. But to her surprise, the little pink-haired girl tells her no. She physically slams her hands down and tells the maid that she would never do that. Mela is left shocked, wondering why the no after such a good treatment, as Iron walks out from the discussion to her bed, climbing on it as she refuses. Iron reasons that her father said stealing is an evil act, so she would pretend that she did not hear anything from the maid. But as she slips into the blanket, Mela politely threatens that she will reveal the fact that the little lady is a beast woman, as she has been her attending maid for so long that she noticed her secret. She also knows that Iron turned into an animal at the New Year's party, evilly hinting at the cocoa up she drank that day. The information is shocking for Iron, as she was expecting the cocoa to be a good effective medicine. But alas, she was cheated instead. But it didn't matter as it was already too late. So, she closes her eyes, trying to ignore the maid as she leaves the room, threatening Iron that she will regret it. Snuggled in her bed, she thinks that in the end, it will still play out according to the original. The heroine will actively solve the theft, thus making Erno Edam interested in Charney. She continues that yesterday she found the purpose of staying, her newly acquired sister, and everything was bubbling up instantly. She is sad at the turn of events, wondering why her life was always like this. Soon the night arrives with a full moon, the quiet night of the dragon, where the blood and madness of the people of the Edam clan are falling into a deep sleep, because on this day, regardless of direct or indirect, the power of those who belong to Edam will weaken, so the security of Edam's guard was greatly enhanced. Thus, today is the day that Mela missed her chance. In the morning, people gossip about the beastly nature of Iron, some shocked at how the child could be a dragon and how dare she disrespect the Edam family, even talking about how Mela took care of it like a nanny all these years. The pink-haired girl is seen talking to the head butler of the Edam clan, a serious man, making her wonder if something happened and if she should run away now. The man apologizes and explains that his name is Kylo. He apologizes for his sudden appearance and asks her to accompany him somewhere. She strengthens her will, thinking that whatever has to come will come, and agrees to follow him. She wonders if the fact that she is a beast girl will be revealed, but it is okay if that happens. Soon she is standing in a hall full of people in front of the Duke himself, who orders that she must answer his questions honestly from now on. He then asks whether she conspired with the man in black and stole Erno Edam's earrings. Was that true? The question is shocking for Iron as she wonders if she did steal the earrings. She looks at her maid, crying crocodile tears, and thinks if Mela is blaming her. But she treated her so well. Outside, the questions continue, asking about the fact that she was the beast girl. The Duke angrily orders her to please answer honestly. If it is false, then say no. If it is true, then say yes. Iron looks up at the older man and replies that she is a beast girl. But, before she could say anything else, her vision swims as her head spins, much to her horror. Her eyes become dizzy as she glances around her tired eyes, landing on a sneakily smiling Mela. Horror dawning on her as she realizes Mela drugged her to transform. Her dress slips onto the ground as she seemingly has enough, but soon a little pink dragon is visible from the pile of clothes. The hall buzzes with shocked murmurs as she tries to escape the premises, some calling her a lizard, some a snake. One of the audience members harshly tries to step on her, and his foot lands on her tail, snapping it in two, and she runs up to a pillar. The people gossip about how she is a lizard, a reptilian beast girl, the lowly of this low class. They call her names, and she sadly tears up, wondering why she had to be criticized like this. Just then, footsteps sound in the hall as Erno Edam walks under the pillar and raises his hand, asking Iron to come down to her nicely. She is worried that her father must have been disappointed, as he hates reptiles so much that she wonders if their relationship is over. But when her eyes land on her father, she notices the doll given to him lying on the floor. Seeing it, her hands slip from the pillar as she begins to fall. She fears that the fall so high might at least give her a concussion, and she is confused about how a lizard like her lost her grip on the wall in the first place. She fears for her life and closes her eyes, wishing she could teleport anywhere but this. And when she opens her eyes, she lands on her doll in the forest. A violet-haired man picks up the lizard girl, wondering how she lost her tail. He says she also lost her parents already. She and he were in the same situation. He is happy to see the lizard and vows to keep her as his pet. Light trickles through the hall, blinding everyone in the room, and then dissipates, leaving everyone dazed at the sudden magical disappearance of the lizard girl as if by magic. Once realizing that Iron has disappeared internally, Mela jumps with joy at the success of her mission. She decides all she needs to do now is a return to the guild, and then she can. But before she could finish her thoughts, a dark, menacing, looming figure appeared behind her. Her breath is stuck in her throat as the halls vibrate with her screams. The onlookers gaze with horror as Mela is sprawled on the ground, bleeding profusely from her arm. As she looks up to the culprit's long blade, dripping with her blood, the sword's owner is Erno Edam, who is fuming at the thought of her daughter's suffering. He quietly declares that her daughter cried, much to the protests of the lying maid, who is confused at the revelation of the ownership of the familial relationship with Erno Edam. But he is vehement that he already had owned her as his daughter. What other reasons did she need? He then proves his point by angrily slashing his sword down at the maid, making her meet her early demise, her blood splattering around the hall, and Erno Edam's blue aura emitting from the brutal scene. Erno Adam's eyes lie next to the assaulter that squashes her daughter's tail, and he marches over to him, ordering him to use that filthy mouth of his one more time, the same one he used to criticize his daughter. But the question was rhetorical, as Erno Adam does not let him open his mouth before he slashes his sword again, with an even more menacing aura surrounding him. Duke finally steps down from his throne, witnessing his son making their hall a bloodbath, and asks him to do it in moderation and not make more blood spill inside the mansion as his son stands over the nobleman taking his last breaths. But Erno Adam insists while cleaning the blood off his sword that this would not have happened if the Duke did not bring this up in the first place. The Duke is nonplussed to hear this and calls his son immoral and complains that from the beginning, he would bring back the brat and upset him, and then even claim her as his daughter does, he wants to adopt. Besides, she is just a reptilian beast, and the possibility that the bloodline of the Adam clan is also very slim. And as the Duke is about to open his pen, Erno Adam throws his sword at the cell, sending them both flying across the room, and declares that this is something that he would decide himself, and either way, she is his baby. He will be out of the house for now, knowing that it must be because of the Lord himself, and before he returns, they must bring his daughter in front of him as quickly as possible. To this, his father, the Lord, inquires where he is going, and he mustn't cause any atrocities as he goes out because he has his limit. But the head butler Kylo is on Erno Adam's side, surprising the Duke. But Erno Adam continues that as he had heard yesterday, that maidservant used to be an indicator of the good moon. And even if he must search to listen to the answer from her mouth, wouldn't that look threatening to a child who does not know anything? But the Duke disbelieves all this, and when Kylo asks if he will look for the girl, the Duke is unsure. Hearing this, Kylo suggests that he would order Tarim to act, to which the Duke again says that he doesn't know and that Kylo should figure something out and take care of it himself. Kylo understands that and tells his lord that he will report to him as soon as he sees her. As the Duke leaves, the head butler then sighs, orders someone to call the hospital, and urges everyone to stay away from the blood splashing, followed by moans of pain from the survivors. This scene makes him sigh as he thinks that this house does not have a single peaceful day. Meanwhile, somewhere there is a cottage in the middle of the forest where the indigo-haired man has Iron sitting in front of her at the table. He calls the lizard girl Bam Bam, saying that the lizard girl's name from now on will be Bam Bam. He then asks her to explain how she came here on her own. Iron thinks that she has been here since she opened her eyes. She considers how this wasn't the first time she ran from home, and after something like a nightmare happened, she lost consciousness. When she woke up, she realized that she had targeted this place during the chaos, and during preschool, she went to the orphanage. And now, in front of her is a mysterious, beautiful teenager who cannot name anyone. The man is one of the male assistants of the adoption floor and the owner of the future magic tower, Richard Collin, more commonly known to the readers as the Crazy Guy, as he is infamous for his crazy flying, dancing till his feet feel hot, doing weird experiments, and being ruthless in his killing. As he used to say, how much suffering people must have to beg to die. He looks down at her, Bam Bam, assuring her that he had saved her, so be soothed that he won't kill her. But holding her also meant that she belongs to him now and she must stay by his side from now on. Iron worries that maybe she will change into the main heroine's madman in the future. And besides that, since coming here, she has been trying to turn into a human. But as she stresses and stretches, she cannot transform back. She isn't even showing signs of changing, much to her chagrin. Richard looks at her loudly, wondering if she never had a tail, but then deduces that a fellow lizard might have wounded her. He then swallows that, of course, whether it be humans or reptiles, they are all the same. They all bully the ones that are different from them. The statement makes Iron look up at him, remembering how Richard is also a poor child who has lived in a discriminatory environment since childhood, as he is knowledgeable compared to other people, and his beautiful, magical talent is also different from others, thus being distinct from others and having no parents. He then nudges his hand to her to climb up on and promises to raise her to be strong. Even if she has no tail, he will prove that she is not inferior to anyone, thus vowing to take revenge on the bad guys who bullied her. Richard then asks if she agrees, and the question is confusing for her as, on the one hand, she wishes no revenge, but on the other hand, she does. So she agrees, making him glad, and he tells her to start training tomorrow. Just then, the door opens, and the principal calls Richard and asks him why he didn't go to the practice today. But Richard is uninterested and says he does not want to hear it. The principal assumes that he must not have gone because he has no friends, but Richard is offended to hear this and grabs Bam Bam, making her visible to the principal, who reminds him that pets are not allowed in the house. But Richard hides her, saying that he just hiccuped himself and had no pets. But the principal is suspicious and asks him to stand back from the animal. Richard angrily refuses and says that even if he is the principal, Richard does not like anyone touching his stuff, and both are in a fierce standoff. There is a story from a long time ago. Once upon a time, a gentle and honest boy lived in a harmonious family. One day, while the boy was working with his uncle in the fields, he heard the whisper of the god who said to raise your sword and protect this land. The end was shortly after the war broke out. The boy who received the light of God bravely cut off the enemy's heads, and thanks to the cleverness and warrior skills of the boy, they won the war. But the horror of the war was endless, as the scenes followed were brutal. Children, heroes, and women were mourned, families turned to ash, and homes destroyed. The hero himself was not feeling victorious even though he won the war, but as he also had lost his wife and children, he fell into a state of mourning, leaving the village to hide his tracks in despair. There were many rumors about where the victorious hero could have gone, but no one knew for sure. It's like he vanished, vowing to be never found again. Back to the present, Richard is standing his ground in front of his principal, saying he does not appreciate anyone touching his stuff, even if the principal is taking it. Irene is hiding behind Richard's chair, fearful of their dangerous situation. But when she hears Richard call the man principal, according to the novel, this means that the man is the infamous victorious hero. The man in question is clarifying to Richard that he does not mean to ask him to abandon the animal but take it to a better place, better than this orphanage, to which Richard argues he can feed it well. He also promises not to be caught with the pet then, but the principal asks him not to be stubborn. Just then, Bam Bam jumps off the table in front of the principal, much to the surprise of both men. She then kowtows in front of the principal, shocking him as he realizes that the animal was begging to be allowed to stay there, to which she early nods in affirmative. Richard is speechless at seeing such a magical creature who understands human language. The victorious hero concludes that this is a particular size for lizards. Impressed, he allows Richard to keep the lizard and educate the animal well. He exits the room, claiming it is late today, so he should rest and attend practice tomorrow. As the door closes, Richard rushes to crouch in front of his Bam Bam in shock as she asks how she did that and if she understands the human language. He is proud of himself, as his eyes were not wrong, and she is the most special lizard in the world, and meeting each other was destiny. He advises her to stay with him from now on as both of them have places to go. He pets her head, promising to chase her to hell if she ever runs away. Richard then kisses her cheek, much to her shock as she tries her best to remember that Richard Collin is a sub-make-the-lead, and the master of the future master of the magic tower, and a crazy man among the genius magicians. Seeing him, she is reminded of her father. The next day arrives at the house where the boys in training are having their meal. Just then, Richard steps into the dining hall, and a group of bullying young men begin to comment on him as soon as he arrives. But he is trying to appear unbothered as he decides to quickly have his meal and leave to buy some fruits for Bam Bam after dinner. The bullies continue to jeer at the indigo-haired young man, saying that he skipped all the practice but still has the gall to come into the dining hall to eat. They remark that the principal has some favoritism over Richard, giving him a single-person spacious room. The black-haired bully comments that maybe the principal pities him, considering he used to be enslaved. This comment stops Richard in his stance, the words getting to him. The bully, unaware, continues going as far as to say that he must be the kind of pet that lies on the ground. Richard stands still in his boots as the chef pours red gravy on his noodles. The redness of the sauce symbolizes the anger Richard is feeling at the moment. He then quietly takes his plate towards the bully's table and slams his plate right across the face, sending him down onto the ground, sputtering as he is coated in the food. Richard calls them all too noisy and stupid pigs, and he ominously looks at the fallen bully and asks him to repeat his earlier statement. The bully says what statement, to which he raises his hand as magical ice crystals form over his fingers as he prepares to launch the magic onto the bully. But his writing is blocked just in time by the principal, who reminds him that using magic on other people is forbidden. But Richard is furious, claiming that the principal heard it too, to which the victorious hero calmly replies that his magic can quickly kill the opponent, and is dangerous to use. The indigo-haired young man is overwhelmed by frustration, screaming what does it matter if they die, as they also want him dead. He angrily shakes off his principal's grip and rushes out of the dining hall, claiming that the principal knew nothing, leaving the older man shouting for him. He then turns around and orders the fallen boy to go to the infirmary. Soon the sun sets as Irene waits in the room for Richard, who promised to bring her fruits when he returns. But since he hasn't returned yet, is worrying about the lizard girl. Just then, someone steps in the room, calling for the lizard, making her hide under the bed. It is revealed to be the principal, who tells her that Richard ran away from home and needs to work with her to find him. He asks her to come out from under the bed, which she does. This makes him understand that she can understand human language. Soon a figure is racing through the forest, jumping from one tree to another at record speed. He turns to ask Bam Bam if she is okay. It is then revealed that the cloaked figure is the principal of the boys' orphanage, and they both are hunting to find Richard. He asks Bam Bam if she can smell or feel Richard's presence nearby. But Iron cannot reply or focus as she is busy holding on to the principal's shoulder for dear life. But the man is focused on finding his student and cannot realize the poor creature's plight. He deduces that his student could not have gone that far, judging by how little time has passed since he ran off. All the while, she is worried that she might fall from his shoulder and die due to the sheer speed he is running, so she holds tight and puts the smell detection skill on the back burner. But to her immense relief, he soon stops at a treetop and gazes at a village before him. His instincts tell him that Richard is most likely inside the village, as it is known that he comes here regularly. He then turns to the lizard and finds her slightly purple on the face as she looks extremely winded from such an arduous journey. He wonders if she is so sensitive because she is a tiny lizard, and she concurs that it might be true. He then drops onto the ground below the cliff and places Bam Bam carefully on an abandoned set of crates outside the village and tells her to stay there and not enter the village as it is dangerous for her. So he will go inside alone to find Richard. He tells her to search the outskirts only, and if she manages to find the young man, she should alert him and sprinkle his scent on her for reference. He also provides Richard's smell to her. She is slightly miffed by the insinuation of her being categorized as a scent dog. But when she smells the young man's handkerchief, she realizes that she can see a scent trail leading her to Richard. The principal then wears his cloak and bids farewell to the lizard, urging her to be mindful of the boundary wall of the village and make sure not to cross it under any circumstances. Left alone to her devices, Iron sighs, wondering if she could find him all alone. But she is too worried not to try, so she sets off on the journey guided by the scent trail. The moon is high in the sky when she finds the young man desolate on the swings the scene P. She climbs up on his back, surprising him with her presence. He is happy to see her but wonders how she found him after such a long, tiring journey. But she can only make cheerful sounds in response. He apologizes for worrying her and explains that something very upsetting happened today. He was troubled by a few bullies, but he had already dealt with them, teaching them such a lesson that they won't bother him for a while. He calls this experiment No One. He is especially mad at the boy named Ash, who is claiming to have been adopted fairly recently and is bragging about finding new parents. He is disgusted by his boasting, but he vehemently denies being jealous. However, then, he goes solemn as he sees a pair of parents loving their child across the and admits that he sometimes thinks about why his parents left him. If they hated him so much, then why give birth to him? But he claims to understand that ordinary people are terrified of magic, so his parents may feel the same. The thought angers him as he grips the swing tightly, his knuckles white with force. He questions, does that justify leaving him from the beginning, removing his existence from the world? Hearing this, Iron is reminded that in the original novel, Charney and Richard met before growing up, and it is then that Richard finds out that he is the long-lost youngest son of the Collin family. This gives her an idea that Richard would become gentler and kinder once he finds his family instead of being resentful like now. Charney and Richard deserve a loving and secure household and to find and live with their families, as it would be a better life. She plops onto Richard's lap, her empathy revived, and looks at him passionately, promising to find a family for him so he shouldn't worry. She continues thinking that it was not that his family abandoned him. Instead, there is a long story behind it. She asks him to believe in her internally as she will surely find him a loving family. She then tries to gesture for him to head back as Principal Alvian is looking for him. But obviously, he cannot understand her and only pets her head in response, and thanks her for finding him and listening to him. He calls her better than humans, a kind lizard. Just then, Bam Bam sneezes, making Richard worriedly think she caught a cold and assuming that the gradually cooling night might be the reason. He then gets up to head back, but she starts to steer him in the opposite direction with the help of his scarf. As the duo walks into the village, Bam Bam looks around for signs of the principal. She wonders that sometimes she thinks like this, that it is better not to be born in this world, or it is better to disappear as soon as she is born. As then, at least she would be happier now, she thinks that would be the case. And as she thinks this, the duo walks onto a bridge under the moonlight. They come across the principal talking to a villager, probably about his students' whereabouts, when suddenly he turns around as if he notices Richard's scent or presence and rushes towards him to hug him, making them both fall onto the ground from the forceful impact of the hug. The scene is witnessed by a pleased Bam Bam, who looks at her current master's bashful yet pleased appearance as he is engulfed in the warm, loving embrace of his principal, who is relieved to find his pupil safe and sound. The night falls, and the moon shines on a window, cascading through the blinds on a bed on which Richard has fallen asleep peacefully. Bam Bam is perched on the window, thoughtful. The principal watches this serene scene from the doorway and asks the lizard girl why she isn't sleeping yet. He assumes she must be a nocturnal lizard, but Bam Bam thinks she cannot sleep right now. Then the principal sits down in front of his student on a chair. He then sighs, talks to the lizard girl, and says that he wants to thank her as her presence has brightened Richard since the day they met for the first time. All the while, Richard is sleeping unconscious to the world. He continues that although Richard is strong on the outside, he is a lonely child. He was despised by his peers and humiliated by society just for being the child of a wizard. And so, he closed his mind within himself. At least, he is sure that Richard's parents never meant to abandon him, as they say that the wizards are particularly attentive to their flesh and blood. He is reminded of a parcel sent for Richard from the Collin family, which is why he has been trying to find Richard's parents until today, but to no avail as there is no success. So he asks the lizard girl to please take good care of the young boy, as she might be able to fill the void within the boy's heart. The lizard girl is still looking out the window, her expression sad and empathetic. The principal then gets up from his chair and says that although many children have become independent while living here, dealing with the children is still painful for him. He then walks out, closing the door behind him. Bam Bam is left to her thoughts. She thinks that if she could speak, she would have consoled him. She then steps down from the window, patterns over to the bed, and climbs it with difficulty. She then settles on the pillow, glances at him, and thinks about how his face looks like an angel when he sleeps and how much of a beautiful boy he is. Just then, her back starts to itch and tickle. She wiggles her arms, unable to reach the itching spot, and wonders what is happening on his back and why it has been itching lately. She then closes her eyes wistfully and wishes to be a human by tomorrow, as she cannot wait any longer. She wishes that by tomorrow, when she opens her eyes, she will be back as a human being. That night was no different than any other night except that the moon was exceptionally bright and brilliant. In the morning, Richard is seen huffing and puffing as he climbs the stairs, cursing his principal for making him do this chore for hours on end just because he skipped the training, even though he apologized for the absence. Upon reaching the end of the stairs, he takes the stick he was using to walk and smacks it on the door, warning the principal to wait till he gets older and bigger. He will run away from the orphanage and never see him again. Richard then sighs to relieve his anger and happily bangs open the door, inviting himself into his room as he announces to Bam Bam that he is back and will bring her fruit from downstairs, so she should wait a little bit. But looking inside, he sees a pink-haired little girl standing in his room instead. The scene is shocking for Richard, who angrily demands who she is and why she is in his room. But when she asks him to wait and listen to him, he is insistent on teaching the girl a lesson for being in the wrong place and the wrong room. But as he says that, he sees the girl holding Bam Bam's skin in her hand. The sight is terrifying for Richard as he stutters in, assuming that she has done something horrible to his Bam Bam, and clenches his fist to launch a magical icy attack on him. However, he has a flashback of his professor telling him his magic might kill the opponent. He hesitates, then defuses the attack but furiously orders her to give him his Bam Bam and leave his room. Hearing the commotion, the principal climbs up the stairs and sees his pupil threatening a girl in his room to get out of his room quickly if she doesn't want to get hurt. He asks Richard what the fuss is all about. He complains to his principal that a stranger has intruded into his room, and she keeps talking nonsense, saying she was Bam Bam. Hearing this, the principal looks closely, and that is when he notices her tail swishing behind her dress, making him ask her if she is a lizard girl. Soon the trio finds themselves in the lounge next to a fireplace. The principal gathers the information that she is a lizard girl, 5 years old, has no one as her guardian, and that her name is Iron. He confirms all this with her, and she nods in affirmation. Richard hears all this with slight disbelief, wondering if she is his Bam Bam. It is said that some animal people are between animals and humans. In particular, the lizard people especially live in tropical regions, so they rarely come here, so this is the first time he has met one of them in person. Richard is unfamiliar with the concept of tropical regions, to which he explains that the reason that they have hot weather all year round is the areas known as tropical regions. But during this, all Iron thinks is that she has somehow failed, as she is sure she made a wish last night, but shouldn't she be warned about it? If it had been a little late, it would have been a bigger problem. However, her thoughts are interrupted by the principal, who asks him apologetically that he is sorry, but he has to make sure that whether she lost her mom or dad or ... as he trails off. But she hesitates to reply, so he stops his questions and says that she does not have to say anything she is uncomfortable with. But internally, he is immensely stressed as he does not understand how animal people can only survive and grow when they have guardians or parents to care for them who dare to abandon them. Sighing remorsefully, he asks if she would like to stay with Richard in this orphanage for the time being. But the more important matter is handling and hiding this tale of hers. As she is made aware of it, she apologizes, saying that she tried to hide it by putting it in my skirt, but that didn't work as it was too big. He hurries and assures her that she shouldn't apologize for such things and says that after he goes to the capital, it would be good for him to find out some information about the animal people there. She picks up on that, and he clarifies that he has some work to do there. She then realizes that the capital is where the Collin family's mansion resides. She then concludes that she can find Richard's parents, but her thoughts made her look at him, making him nervous as if something was on his face. A wooden trinket box is settled on the ground before the younglings. Iron is amazed by the box's contents and in awe of his capable collection. He explains that he has been collecting all this pretty stuff all these years by walking around the backyard. He is pleased to show her all this, some of his acorns, a few seashells, some red maple leaves, and most importantly, the corpse of a long red centipede. But the creature makes her scream, and she covers her eyes, asking why he has picked that up, the sight making her go blue in the face from fear and disgust. But Richard is happy with his collectible, calling it amazing and something geometrical. They both were in a forest near the nursery school they lived in, as it had been 3 days since Iron had returned to her human form. So, Richard brought her here in the middle of the forest because he said he had his secret place there. But to her shock, the surprise was this trinket box with a centipede corpse. Unaware of her slight unease, Richard shows her another item, a shard of a sapphire-like gem that he had picked up yesterday. Upon seeing the gem sparkling in his hands, the sun rays bouncing, Iron realizes that it was the balanced fragment of the ancient dragon relics from Erno Etham's earring. She looks delighted at finally finding the object, and her happiness is quite visible to Richard, who asks if Bam Bam likes the item. She trails off at that, wondering why he still calls her Bam Bam even when he knows that her name is Iron, to which he replies that he knows that. But since he saved her life, he is allowed to call her Bam Bam if he desires. Anyways, he sees her unbudging gaze at the gem and loudly wonders if he should give this gem to her. The idea is delightful to her, but then he playfully asks what he would get in return for giving her such a precious gift. His saying those feelings reminds her of the capital and his family residing there, as that is all she can give him, so she says she would take him to the capital. Still, he refuses, firmly saying that, in his opinion, the capital stinks, has too many people and buildings, and is very crowded. But she assures him that the capital also had so many candies, fruits, and there is even a surprise beyond Richard's imagination. Curious, he asks what, but she says it's a secret, but she is sure Richard would like it very much. Interest piqued, he wonders if he would surely be surprised, to which she nods enthusiastically, making him think over her response, and then trusting her as he agrees to make her smile. But he proposes that if he does not like the gift or cannot go to the capital, she must promise to stay by his side forever. He says that with his face inches before hers, since they were alone, they should be each other's family then. He asks her to promise as she is thoughtful before promising him as they do a pinky swear. The next morning, Richard would leave for the capital in a carriage. But before that, he would introduce the new teacher working instead of him, so they could hide under the coachman's chair under the carriage when the coachman was not looking. And so, as long as they keep going without being noticed, they would soon arrive at the capital without the principal ever knowing. This is all a plan that Iron curated herself, and she asks for his opinion, which he says is completely reckless in his honest evaluation. He explains that knowing their principal's personality, the man would never allow this to happen, so what is her plan in case they get caught? The questions confuse Iron as she thinks it would all be okay if they both manage to hide extremely well since all they have to do is endure for a little while. But Richard clears her misunderstanding about this and clarifies that it takes a whole week's worth of travel to reach the capital, making her think twice about her plan. She thinks about how her original goal was separate from this, as she hoped to bring Richard to the Duke of Colin, secretly give back the fragment of earrings to Erno Etam, and withdraw some of her money from the bank. This turn of events stresses her immensely, as she has to go to the capital to do so much, and many good things await her. Seeing her worried expression, Richard says that if she wants to go to the capital, to which she says then it would be fun, and she should go to the capital, as she made a promise to Richard while he looks at a drawing of him and Iron made by her presumably. He is convinced, as he says that they should try her plan once, no harm in that, and the agreement makes her happy, to which he reminds her that they made a promise to each other. Now they are a family, so whatever Bam Bam wants to do, wherever she wants to go, he will go with her, he promises to her, giving her his hand as a vow. She thinks that it all was great up to that point. Soon the carriage arrived, and they both were cramped inside the coachman's seat. The space was so narrow that they had to sit between each other's legs. Her imagination is quite different from reality, as she thought they would be more comfortable. Space enough for 5 and 8 years old. Her thoughts are interrupted as Richard begins stammering as he tries to convey something to Iron. His face red and uncomfortable, making her believe he might be cramped. But that is not the case, as he is more likely flushed by her proximity, so he stops himself and says nothing. Just then, the people outside the carriage announce their departure, but just as the wheels run over a stone, they both bump into the carriage, making their presence known to the coachman. He then asks the principal whether he has something heavy in his luggage, but he denies that. But the coachman and Iron felt it as soon as the carriage moved. Iron despairs to realize that her plan has failed miserably. As soon as the carriage starts moving, she realizes her plan is a failure. And that's how the first part of this manhwa ends. Well guys, if you like this video and you want a second part, comment below with the word part 2. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell and like the video. But most important, leave a comment. Until the next video.